Fatherland videos. We have a mythology lost story from Atlantis. This book is presented by Dr. Jennifer Fuller, Flame Tree Publishing. We're on page 298. A Poison of Bodies Beneath the Water by Spencer Orey. Another barrage of glowing boulders struck the water around the ship until one finally burst through with a spray of wood and flailing bodies. Watching from the depths, I already wanted to intercept the survivors, to slit their throats, to seize some small revenge against these surface dwellers who dare pollute the sea with poisonous magic. The corpses would remain on the seafloor, but their blood, at least, could diffuse to feed other creatures. My sister Lolia held me tight at her side. Not long. She was right. To go now, with boulders still raining down, when the ship itself was beginning to rain, to splintering into pieces and cascaded into the water like glowing arrows would be too dangerous. Soon, survivors would launch in little boats. Others would swim for the coast, only to drown the harsh currents, unless we blew them first. Years earlier, ships had sailed the other direction. Those had been warships filled with shining metal armored soldiers. Most had returned. Afterward, the flow of these pathetic, smaller ships had begun. We assumed the warships had left behind such terrible desolation that the conquered had grown desperate enough to seek refuge in the land of their conquerors. Those that were bled were not soldiers, for they were bore no weapons or armor. More were already close to death, haggard bodies clothed in rags. But when their ships burst apart, it no longer mattered who they'd been. They became dirty flesh, poison in the sea, a threat to eliminate it here so that our city could stay pure. Three small boats deployed from the sinking ship, fewer than usual, more boulders, glowing so bright that even from the depths I saw them ripple through the air above, plummeted to strike. One detonated in the first boat, and the body struck the water, already dead. Some of them glowed where they had been hit. The second boat escaped the barrage to continue with its course, but it wouldn't survive long. Lolia released her hold on me, beckoning me forward. Instead, I watched the third boat. A glowing bubble slowly lowered around the boat, enclosing it completely. Then the bubble boat submerged, descending into the depths, into our territory. I expected it to head toward the land, but instead, it turned away, but not in the direction it had come. It had a different destination. A new poison, Lolia said. They spread their filth. So we had the same idea. I would take care of the boat, I said. Do not draw close until you can be certain of safety. I would not lose you to the rot, she said. Good hunting, sister. I will meet you back in the city. With the flick of my tail, I was off. To touch the glowing bubble around the boat would mean my death. Everything glowing like the poisonous sea creatures. We knew it to be surface magic, but called it the rot. And even one rotten touch could rob us of our lives underwater by destroying our gills and fins. With each glowing boulder, with each repelled ship, the sea floor grew more devastated. One coral had thrived here. Now it was a graveyard, littered with glowing wreckage, bones and rocks, devoid of life. I kept my distance at first, in case more boaters launched in pursuit. The boat was the brightest thing in the sea and easy to follow. I knew the real area, a shivering kelp forest that stretched to the undersea mountain. in its sacred caves. I knew the area well. The boat lowered enough to brush one long strand, and it kelp shrank away of its bitten, then withered and detached, floating free. As long as the bubble persisted, there was little I could do. I swam closer in search of an opening. I counted 9 figures on the boat. Only 9. This one in the middle was responsible for the glowing bubble. They had a staff, and a bubble grew out from it, around the ship. A wizard. The other 8 were children. Most sat wide-eyed, clutching onto each other. A few were crying. I understood where the ship was headed. Inside the undersea mountain was a sacred cave where my people had first shed their disgusting land flesh, where we had become myrrh. I learned of the cave as a small hatchling, but had never journeyed there. It was a place as sacred as was shameful, a marker of time when we hadn't belonged in the sea. The wizards should not have known about it. My people do not share our myths, but perhaps there had been a traitor long ago before we learned to defend our borders. In stories, the cave magic only worked on the young. It could transform these children, but not the wizard who saved them from shipwreck and then sought one last impossible chance for their safety. Unworthy, unwelcome children. If I tell them swim free of the mountain, they pollute my people as much as their glowing magic poison the sea. Better to dispose of them before they transform. My understanding also gave me an easy opening. The wizard wanted the children to join my people. All I had to do was act welcoming. I hid my knife in its holster on my back. Then I swam above the ship, close enough for them to see the silhouette of my tail. I couldn't hear the children, but I saw the feet of them reach their hands to disgusting little mouths and gasps of recognition. I waved. I darted over their boat again. A couple of children tugged on the wizard's robe, pointing at me. I could see her better now, too. Weary jaw clenched, hands clasped on the staff to maintain the spell. What horrors had they all faced that had driven them across unfriendly waters? Did the wizard know she was protecting the only survivors of the ship? To be responsible for those small broken lives would be unbearable weight. All I had to do was cause her to slip enough to break the bubble. At this depth, the force of the water alone would be enough to crush them all. I danced for them. I mimicked pulling at the wizard's robe and long braid of hair. I even mimicked pushing her staff, but the children must have been warned against anything like that. The undersea mountain loomed larger, darkening the water with its shadow, the wizard's distraction. Perhaps it would be best to wait inside the cave, where the exhausted wizard would have to drop her spell to let the children out. To let them inside would be shameful, but it was the best to heed Lolia's warning and protect myself in the hunt. I waved to the children and then darted ahead. The cave mouth was far larger than I imagined, with a current of its own pulling me closer. It was a cave that wanted to be visited. Past the mouth, the opening became a rocky tunnel into the mountain. The walls twinkled with true magic, illuminating barnacles and algae. This was my people's magic, not the foul-glowing poison of the surface dwellers, a magic that fostered life. I swam past massive statues, ancient tributes to our transformation. They'd been sculpted by the first mirror artisans, the same who built our city. I followed the tunnel to a wide cylindrical passage up into the heart of the mountain, where the water grew soothing warm against my scales. I ascended. The walls twinkled brighter, a sign of powerful magic. The children could just from here if I didn't stop them. If I didn't stop them. Hold on, y'all. Above, I saw a shimmer of the surface. Just below it, a stone staircase lit up out of the water to a sculpted bow. This could only be the site of transformation, where my ancestors had given up their legs to become something far greater. There could be nothing more sacred. Beautiful twinkling light cascaded from the bow, promising magic. Then a poisonous glow tainted the water too. The boat was raising. It was time. I again pretended to welcome the children. I waved. I darted through the water. The children waved back at me, jumping in place. Good. Let them be excited. Let them trust me. All I needed was for the wizard to lower the bubble. I had just long enough to evaluate the wizard before the boat surfaced. She was on one knee, breathing heavily, still gripping her staff. She looked to be almost out of strength. I stuck my head above the water. It was disgusting to be in the air, to feel the water run down my hair and face and neck, to feel the skin start to dry. Worst of all, above the hum of the poison bubble, I heard the laughter of the children. I waited for them to jump into the water. They waited for me to join them. The boat pulled closer to the bow, where the children could be transformed, and yet, as I suspected, the bow was too high to be reached from the boat. They had to enter the water first, to swim to the stairs and climb from here. All I had to do was wait. The wizard staggered. The bubble dropped. All poisonous light suddenly vanished, leaving only the perfect twinkle of the cave. Children cheered and rushed into the railing, rocking the boat. "Sister, stay back," the wizard called out. "They belong here as much as more than we do." "Sister." That could explain how she knew about the cave. So the wizard had once been Myrrh. She had been one of my sisters, but she turned to the surface. She traded her people away to learn the secrets of poison, a traitor. She'd see the error of her ways when I gutted her. She'd understand the folly of choosing lesser life forms, of betraying her kind. I reached for my knife. The wizard spun my way, staff pointing. I dove underwater. A glowing ray of light sizzled past where I had been hissed against the stone wall. In the open sea, I would have hidden under the boat, then anchored over the side to begin the slaughter. But in the water this pure, this clear, it was too hard to hide. I dodged another ray of light. It burst apart a statue, one of the timeless treasures of my people. I dodged again easily. I belonged in this place, but she was an outsider now. Her strength would give out first. No rays of light followed. I surfaced worriedly, ready to dart away. A few of the children grabbed the wizard's arms and were screaming to her to stop. "Please help," I called to them. "She wants to hurt me." "The mermaid is not your friend," the wizard yelled. She shrugged off the children and fired again. I didn't even have to move. Her aim was off, and the ray looked thinner than the ones before. One child screamed, "Don't hurt her." Another child tackled the wizard in the legs. She wobbled, and the whole boat rocked with her. "Stop it, everyone. Angelina is the one keeping us safe," an older girl said. The boat rocked as the children pushed each other. "Quick, children, dive into the water," I called. "I'll catch you." I opened my arms wide. "No, all of you stay back." The wizard raised her staff, and a bubble of light began to bloom out of the cover of the boat. But a little girl locked eyes with me, face bright with trust. She stepped out onto the railing and opened her arms. "Put her back," the wizard yelled. Two children reached for her, but they were too slow. The girl jumped into the water. I stayed out of reach. A cloud of dirt wafted off of her, polluting the sacred place. Time to see if she could swim. A ray of light sears past me. "Stop!" one of the children yelled. A deeper splash. The wizard was in the water. A child had pushed her in. Wonderful. I pulled out my knife. The wizard's robes flowed around her, blocking her vision, but she spun, striking with her staff, trying to hit me. But we were in the air no longer. This was my people's rightful domain, my birthright. I charged forward with my knife, but only managed to slice the sleeve of her robe before she would raise her staff. Glowing bubble bloomed out. I ducked away. Another splash, then more. From the children jumping in, the boat rocked more, then tipped over, and suddenly all of the children were in the water. The girl who jumped in first was swimming for the stairs. Foul creature. How dare these dirty little things dream of becoming like me, of being worthy to live in the depths. I darted forward with my knife and struck the girl through the back of her shoulder. It was easy. I darted away and struck another child in the chest, knife sliding smoothly through their small sternum. The other children began to panic and scream in realization, but that only made things easier. I stayed in place. I struck another child in the gut. Only 5 to go, plus the wizard. Light flared from behind me, and I darted to the side. It was a bold fire at me like that, to risk hitting children, but no ray came. I spun and saw the wizard clutching a child under her arm, frantically trying to break the surface. One of them must not have been able to swim. In a water rescue attempt, the wizard must have lost her grip on the staff. It floated near her in the water, still glowing faintly. This was my chance. I flicked my tail and surged forward. The wizard swam in little lurching strokes, burdened by her robe and a little body clutched clothes. I grabbed her braid and ripped my knife down her back. She screamed, bubbles of air pouring out of her. But even then, she kept trying to raise the drowning child to the surface. I stabbed her again, and she shrank backwards. Now my task would be far easier. I adjusted my grip of my knife and twisted to find which of my targets was closest. There was a flare of light. Pain seared into my side. The other girl who tried to keep the others in line had prodded me with my staff. "Little fool," I snarled and stabbed, punching my knife through her arm. But I left the poison enter me, even from that small touch. The rock, it was already scorching from my side up to my shoulder. I lurched in the water, losing control. With a sharp pinch, my gills sealed. I ignored the children. I had to save myself first before I could rid of their pollution. But what could I do? The rock was so terribly fast. The poison sizzled down my tail. My scales began to itch, then flake away and leave behind soft flesh, and then my tail ripped into legs. Despite the agony, I had a chance. If I climbed the stairs, I could breathe the foul air. After, I could figure out how to transform back. I put myself through the water with just my arms and reached the surface long enough to take the shameful breath of air. The bowl was full of children. I reached for the stone stairs, and the bowl released a torrent of twinkling bubbles that blocked my sight. I kept clawing forward. My hand hit the stone hard. I gasped in pain, but managed to grasp onto the side of the stairs. Something pulled at me from behind. I twisted, trying to fight, and found the wizard. Whether she died first from bleeding or drowning, she caught me. She wrapped her arm around my neck and pulled again. I lost my grip of the stairs. The wizard, this traitor who once been one of my sisters, put me down, away from the children, and I could do nothing but watch. We drifted past two statues standing together, arms length. One had a tail, the other had legs. They were together, a monument to transformation, to a shared heritage. And then, above me, I saw the new mer. They darted through the water, collecting the children. I hurt, helping them into the boat. My vision darkened, but I saw the boat release more bubbles. Saw the hurt ones return to water restored. Now they venture into the sea. With their very survival, they destroy the purity I fought to preserve. And they were beautiful. The little monsters had transformed into something now. The little monsters has transformed into something not pure, but perfect.